I think especially as women, we don't use our voices. We make ourselves smaller. We make ourselves more amenable. We make ourselves more polite, less confrontational. But when we do that, it's at the cost of our own well being, because every time you shrink yourself or make yourself smaller, you're shoving down a piece of yourself that needed to be expressed. You're shoving down an emotion that needed to be expressed. And when you do that for too long, when you shove down all this anger and hurt and resentment and frustration, there's this sort of rage that fills up inside of you. Welcome to A Year Without Fear, the podcast where we stop letting fear make our decisions and start building the creative lives we actually want. I'm your host, Bethany Morris, and over the next year, I'm going to take you along with me as I write a novel, attempt to turn content creation into my full-time career, and confront my deepest, darkest fears. Welcome back to another episode of A Year Without Fear. I'm your host, Bethany Morris, and I'm a certified somatic and trauma-informed coach who believes that your greatest life lies on the other side of facing your fears. And today we're going to be talking about the fear of stepping into a new identity. I'm going to discuss 3 common fears associated with the fear of stepping into a new identity. And then we're going to talk about some things you can do in order to feel more comfortable with your new identity that you're stepping into. Then we're going to get into some homework. And finally, a life update. Okay, let's get started. So for me, the biggest fear when we talk about stepping into and claiming a new identity is the fear of losing loved ones. There's this saying on the internet that goes around that's like, your new life will cost you your old one. And I'm in a phase of my life where I'm really starting to feel that now. I'm starting to feel that the role I have been playing just doesn't fit me at all anymore. And that pretty soon I'm going to have to fully step out of that role and claim what this episode is about, claiming my new identity. But along with the amazing stuff that comes with having a new identity, relief that you feel when you are able to fully be yourself does come at the cost of who you were before. Because while you might not want to be the version of who you were before, there's still safety in that. There's still comfort in that. And I think that this whole year is about, for me, facing things that are uncomfortable, facing my fears and leaning to the uncomfortable nature of that. And I think that losing loved ones is kind of like losing a piece of yourself. It's like saying goodbye to your old self, the identity that they knew you as, the identity that was wrapped around you when you were a younger version of yourself, when you were just different and now you're better. But better comes with a price. The next fear I have related to stepping into a new identity is the fear of maintaining that identity once I've stepped into it. I feel like I have this problem with money too, where I think my biggest fear with earning money or receiving money, maybe I should say, is that I will lose it all because I am quote unquote not good with managing money, or I don't know enough about money, or I can't learn more about money, or it's really hard to learn more about money. I think that's very similar to the fear of maintaining an identity. There's this fear that the new life I created for myself will all go away. There's fear of my new life that I created for myself. So yeah, I think the fear of maintaining an identity is very similar to the idea of being able to maintain money once you receive it. I also think for me, there's this piece of like, because I have a chronic illness or because I have a couple of chronic illnesses, there's always this idea and this fear that if I need to take some time off, that it will all fall apart. And obviously that's not true. I've been able to maintain my life as it is right now for some time. And that's with dealing my chronic illnesses. So I know that I would be able to pivot if need be. I know I can take care of myself, but there is still that fear of just being able to maintain the things that I've not only given myself, but the things that I've been able to receive. And then the third fear related to stepping into a new identity or claiming your new identity is the fear of your own power. I think that once you are in the phase where you have manifested a new life, where you have claimed your new identity and stepped into your new identity, that you have to admit that you were powerful enough in the first place to be able to do that. And I think a lot of people, including myself, are afraid of admitting how powerful we are. Because if we admit how powerful we are, we'd also have to admit that we've been playing it small. And for some of us, myself included, we've been playing it small for years now. I used to have this reoccurring dream where all of a sudden I would get over my fear of snakes and I would go and buy hundreds and hundreds of snakes and I'd fill a house with them. And then the next day I would be too afraid to feed them and they would slowly wither away and die around me while I was frozen in paralysis, unable to feed them. And obviously, that is a very odd dream, but I had that dream for years of my life, like 3 years back to back. And I think what it was trying to tell me was that I couldn't be afraid to act anymore. If I wanted to step into my power, if I wanted to conquer my fears, then I was going to have to do something that I was uncomfortable with. I was going to have to accept that I am a powerful being and I can make things happen for myself and I'm competent enough to make things happen for myself. And I'm not an imposter. I belong at the table. I think, especially as women, we don't use our voices. We make ourselves smaller. We make ourselves more amenable. We make ourselves more polite, less confrontational. But when we do that, it's at the cost of our own well being because every time you shrink yourself or make yourself smaller, you're shoving down a piece of yourself that needed to be expressed. You're shoving down an emotion that needed to be expressed. And when you do that, for too long, when you shove down all this anger and hurt and resentment and frustration, there's this sort of rage that fills up inside of you. And I can speak from firsthand experience. Like, I feel, even though I don't outwardly act on it or look like it, I feel like I'm a pretty angry person. I feel like for the last almost 33 years of my life at this point, I have been making myself smaller in order to make other people more comfortable. And that has been at the expense of myself. It has been at the expense of my health. And it has been at the expense of me finding my power and stepping into my power. Okay, now I wanted to get into some tips that you can use to get your nervous system more used to stepping into and claiming this new identity that you've been able to manifest and create for yourself. So, the first thing I want to say is that the problem when we have created a new identity for ourselves is that our nervous system is not used to that new identity. So your nervous system is going to do anything to remain in homeostasis. It's going to try and keep you safe. That's its job. So when you step out of the norm, when you're stepping out of your bubble, when you are exchanging your old life for your new one, your nervous system is going to freak out and it's going to go into fight, flight, or freeze. And that can look like a lot of anxiety. It can look like analysis paralysis. It can look like perfectionism. And it can just look like, in general, being stuck. So, some things to help with that stuck feeling that I like to do are guided meditations. I really like doing a future self meditation and visualizing myself as the future version of me or the self that I'm currently stepping into or the self that I have already stepped into, and just getting in touch with how they think, how they manage their emotions, how they articulate themselves, how they move in the world, how they dress, what their home looks like. There are a lot of things that you can envision and think about when you're claiming this new identity, because although it's scary to have lost the old one and to have maybe lost the connections that were associated with the old identity, this new identity is worth it. The second thing I like to do is scripting. Scripting is just basically writing in your journal, writing wherever, basically what your future self does every day or how your future self feels every day, what their perfect day looks like. And you write it not from the position of, I want this, or I am getting this or I don't have this yet. You want to write from a position of, I am the future version of myself. So for me, it would be like, I am a successful podcaster. I am a successful content creator. I am a successful best-selling author, et cetera, et cetera. And the more you do that, the more you get your nervous system to be able to hold those ideas, to be able to expand that capacity, be, the more you'll be comfortable with actually embodying that new identity. And then the third thing I like to do is just visualization. I like to either have some soft music on in the background for my meditation playlist, or um, I will sit in just silence and envision my future self, envision where she lives, I envision what she does for activities. I envision how she stays in shape. I envision how she eats. I envision how she gets around. I envision how she dresses, etc. And do that for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I will say it takes time to be able to sit with yourself quietly for that long because we're always overstimulated with our screens, the many screens that we have everywhere. So if you're feeling like it's really uncomfortable, lean into the nature of it being uncomfortable, but also give yourself a break at the same time. If you can't do 10 minutes, do 7 minutes, do 5 minutes, right? Build yourself up to being able to hold capacity for the person that you want to be, for the person that you are, for the person that you have done the work to receive and own with care and compassion and also sovereignty. And that brings us to the homework section. So for today, I want you to pick one of the methods we discussed, whether that is meditation, scripting, or visualization, and picture your future self. And some things you can ask are, what do I smell like? What do I eat every day? What is my perfect routine? What kind of car do I drive? What kind of speaking engagements do I give? What kind of awards have I received? How does it feel to be loved and adored on a new capacity that you are able to hold? How does it feel to expand the capacity to be loved? Okay, now we're going to move on to a quick life update. I am over 10K words in my book, which is so exciting. I'm almost at 12K. But I think the most exciting thing was that I've written low key the best thing that I have ever written. I'll just claim it. I've written the best thing that I've ever written. And I'm really, really excited about that. And so grateful, I guess, to the journey that brought me here because it feels really gratifying. It feels like I put in a lot of work to be able to write this well, and that is paying off. So that's great. I was also thinking about how writing a book and running a business are similar in that what I found running several businesses or attempting to run several businesses is that at the end of the day, you're going to have to trust your intuition. You can listen to all the gurus and their methods, but at the end of the day, if it feels like you're forcing it and that it's not flowing, if you feel burnt out, if you feel completely just wrecked and exhausted, if your business isn't giving you energy, then it's not going to work no matter how hard you push. I think what you need to build a business is to be able to trust your intuition, to trust that you can and will make the right decisions, to trust that you can recover from when you mess up because you will mess up and that's okay. We've done that before, right? We've messed up to get to this place. But you have always risen to the challenge. You have always came back stronger and better than ever and more beautiful. Okay, that has been another episode of A Year Without Fear. And today we talked about the fear of stepping into or claiming a new identity. We discussed 3 fears related to that: the fear of losing your loved ones, the fear of maintaining your new identity, and the fear of owning your own power. Let me know in the comments below, what is your 2026 identity? What is your new self, your current self, actually, the self that you've stepped into? What do they do every day? What do they look like? I'm so curious to know. Thank you so much again from the bottom of my heart for watching, for listening, wherever you are in the world. I will see you next week.